call to order. If we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Secretary Holmes.
Members are present.
Thank you. The agenda is approved as presented unless there are any changes. Okay, so with that, I assume everybody knows we're here tonight to interview 5 people. We had 15 people apply to fill the position vacated by Margaret. Last Thursday we had a meeting and we put it down to 5 people to bring in for an interview this evening. Each board member will ask a candidate one question. It will be the same question asked by the board member for each candidate. We ask that it be done in 15 minutes, so if 4 questions in, we're at 15 minutes, I'll kind of stop and not continue on, so we kind of give the same amount of time to every candidate. After the conclusion of the interviews, there will be a time for audience comments if anybody wishes to address the board, and then at that point we will deliberate and talk about our interviews. So with that, we will start our Board of Education interviews. Our first person is Margaret Bryce.
Hello. Hello. Hi, Margaret. Hello.
So, Margaret, as I said, we're each going to ask a question.
Okay.
It's the same question we'll ask to each candidate. We're going to try to have it be about 15 minutes. So if not everybody asks a question, I'll, kind of cut it off there. So we won't have to start in any particular order. If anybody wishes to start.
I'm gonna just, I'm gonna turn the timer on just so it's fair to everybody. So that you're gonna give me a. Yeah, I'll give you, yeah. I'll try.
Ding, ding. All right. Anybody wish to start, or I'll start? Okay. How do you feel the school district can improve the academic achievement of students and the professional development of the staff?
Well, as far as the academic part, it's all based on curriculum. I think if you look at our test scores, if you look at them when they do them in increments of like K through 3, 4 through 6, and then, the NWA and the SAT, I think we have to look at our K through 3 curriculum and start there. I know when we start out below the level of everyone else, I think that we have to do something about that. There's a huge importance in a lot of other districts that do a lot of reading mediation and math mediation in the K through 3, K through 4. I know as a high school counselor, it was really frustrating for us to get kids that came into the 9th grade taking algebra that hadn't passed a math class in the first 6th or 7th grade or 8th grade, or they got a D, and then we expect them to go sit into an algebra class and pass. So it created behavior problems, and not only was it unfair to the teacher teaching in that room, but it was unfair to the kid that had to go in there. So I think we have to readjust our curriculum. The thing is they say we have a lot of low-income kids, or they worry about that, but it's a perfect time to be able to subsidize those programs and be able to do that. And I think it piggybacks with staff. We put all these new programs into place, we do everything, but we don't train teachers appropriately. We expect them to do it on their own time, or we don't offer the resources for them to go get trained. I know for the longest time, and I know it had to do with finances, that we weren't allowed to go to any curriculum development or any professional development, but we've implemented new programs and we're asked to teach them. So I think we have to focus on that, focus on training our teachers and looking at the curriculum for K through increments and make it an appropriate curriculum for everyone.
Who wants to go next? Feel free. Okay.
So if you could just please share, what are your own 3 top priorities for the district, and how do you see us achieving those goals?
I think that one of my biggest things, and it's what I ran on in November, was the student enrollment, our decline in enrollment, and also the number of teachers leaving the district. I think we have to focus on that. I think we have to find out why they're leaving. I know my platform last time was to interview people that are leaving. I think there should be an exit interview. I think we should talk to teachers talk to parents as to why they're leaving the district. I know it's frustrating for me. I live out of the border of Wagner and Clarkston, and there were probably more open houses for Clarkston students in my neighborhood than there were Wagner students. So I think, they're trying to draw in that population from my subdivision. I think I probably saw 3 or 4 in the last couple of weeks, which is sad. But I think we need to reach out to those people and find out what are they going to Clarkston for that Waterford doesn't have, because it never used to be that way. So that's my biggest thing, and I think if we don't focus on that with the staff, I think we'll see people continuing to leave. And that with the staff retention, I think we have to give staff appropriate raises. I know when I was here, I retired in 2017, I hadn't had a raise or anything probably 7 years, 8 years maybe. And so it's frustrating to do that, and I understand the school finance, and I understand all that, but I think somehow, some way, we have to reward teachers for the work that they put in and do that. So those are a couple of the things. The other thing is I think we need to improve our test scores. I know we keep on saying that we're competitive, but we're not competitive. You go look at all the scores, even in K through 3, if you look at 4 through 6, you look at our SAT scores, we're below all of the school districts around us. And I know we say that we have growth, but there's a huge difference between having growth and being competitive with other school districts. So we're obviously doing something wrong. We say it's our clientele, but I think you need to change the way you approach things with our kids to make our test scores go better. I think that's where we're lacking, and those are my big things.
What qualities, skills, and experience did you bring to the board?
Well, I worked in Waterford for 30 years, so I'm a lifelong resident of Waterford. When I originally started here, I was a special education teacher, and then I went into counseling. So I have a huge background in special education. I know the laws of everything with that. When I went to counseling, I'm certified in mental health issues, drug and alcohol, sex trafficking, and I do college work and career planning now. So I think I bring a whole different element to the school board. I worked in here, so I can tell you what programs work and what programs don't work. I can tell you where we lacked in our curriculum, and I can tell you what the pulse of a staff was. I think we think that the staff is happy, but I think they haven't been happy for a long time. And I think if you don't have a happy staff, you don't have happy kids either. You don't get the most out of them. So I think we need to have a good idea of what's going on in the schools.
Sure.
So identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about and describe how you would balance community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal value and beliefs to determine how to vote on the issue.
Good God. I guess one of the issues you could look at is the closing of schools a while ago. I think you need to look at all the aspects of that. I think you need to have the community involved as much as possible. And I think you need to be transparent as to why you're choosing to close that particular school or that particular program. Closing a school is an emotional thing for a lot of people. And I think what you need to do is get their input from it. And I think you need to be transparent with the reasons why. Approach it from the financial aspect and show how you're losing money and how you're going to save money. I think you need to have a good plan for transition to another school. And I think the more you have the input from staff and from parents and from students, I think that they will value that more, and they'll be more, the transition will be a lot easier. But I think the biggest thing with any big decision is just transparency. I think you need to be honest as to why it's happening. We closed the pool at Kettering today, and that's a big hot topic for a lot of people who are in that side of Waterford. But I think if we would have involved them and put some solid numbers out and told them why you're doing it, I think they would have had better understanding. think the biggest thing, and for any conflict resolution that I did, I always referred that you have to talk directly to that person. My biggest thing was when you hear rumors, when you go on social media, when you do anything, you get a completely different perception of what the real problem is. But you can never go wrong talking face to face with that person, being honest with that person, and talking through the issue. I think too often we don't do that anymore, even as adults. We use social media as a block, and it's real easy to post something on social media or like an Instagram for kids or anything, and then be able to back away and say I didn't have anything to do with it. As a board, I think you need to, if you have a conflict with someone, I think you need to approach them privately and face to face, and have to understand, and it's just the way the world works, is that you aren't always going to agree with someone, but you have to be able to set your own values aside a little bit too, and your own ideas, and be able to compromise. And I think if you can't compromise, then you can't work as a team. And I think that you should consider we consider athletic teams and clubs and everything as a team. We expect everyone to work together. Not everyone likes each other. It's just the way that things are. Personalities are different. But if you can't learn to get along with someone, then I don't know how you can be part of the team.
What do you think are the most important skills for students to have when they graduate?
Well, obviously, academics. I think you need to have a strong background in math and reading. And I don't know if I said this, I'm an adjunct counselor at Oakland Community College, so I see a lot of kids come through, and they struggle if they don't have the right reading score or math score. I think we need to focus on those kind of things. And while an SAT score is not indicative of how well someone's going to do, I think it is a good foundation for them, and I think we need to focus on those kind of things, the basics. The other thing I think that we've lost sight of is communication skills. So many kids now can't communicate. When kids come to OCC, one of the big things is that they have to be an advocate for themselves. They have to sign off on that their parents can't come to do anything for them anymore. And there's so many kids that are so used to sending an email or not talking to someone. And I think we have to be able to learn how to communicate with other adults, express your needs and what you want, and to be able to talk to adults and look them in the face and advocate for themselves. And I think we've lost that art. We used to have speech classes way back in the day, and I think that's a lost art now, and kids struggle with it when they come.
Well, we got through that. There's about 3 minutes left. Is there anything else you would like to add? Is it about 3 minutes left in your time? So if you have anything else you'd like to add for us to know?
No, I just would say, I ran in November and ran on a platform that I wanted to improve the schools. I wanted to improve, I obviously am a huge advocate for the teaching staff and for the students. I think that we have to address the problem of how many kids are leaving and how many teachers are leaving. I know no one ever wants to do that. I know it was said it was cost too much money or that, but I think that, just like I said, there's a lost art of communicating. I think when that exit interview comes, you need to have that conversation with the teacher as to why they're leaving. I mean, people are leaving with 10, 12, 15 years experience to go to other, and we're losing good teachers because of that, and having difficulty replacing some of the positions that we have. But I think we can't improve as a district if you don't know why people are leaving. And I know it's an uncomfortable thing to ask people, but when kids leave, when a kid comes through our counseling office when I was there and they're going to move to another school, we have conversations with them as to why they're leaving. Where are you going? What are your parents doing? Why are you leaving here? And you find those kind of things out. And I think we have to do that, or we're never going to get past that hump. I taught in the district for 30 plus years. I was fortunate enough to be able to retire right when my 30 years and go on to Oakland Community College. I loved every minute of working at Kettering and Mott and as a special education teacher. Not a fan of the evaluation process here, but I was always highly effective in my evaluations. And I think I can bring that element to the board and give that the voice of the student and the voice of the teacher that has been missing for a little while.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Megan will do that. Are we okay to start now, or do we want to wait until their scheduled time, or are we okay to go right into the next? Keep going? I agree, okay. Our next candidate will be Kristen Wagner. Hello. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate this opportunity.
Wonderful. So you know, everybody, each candidate, each board member will ask one question.
Okay.
It's the same question we'll ask to each candidate. We'll set a timer at 15 minutes. If by chance it goes over 15 minutes, it'll kind of go off and we'll stop. So there's a equal amount of time. If we get through the 6 questions and there's still time, I'll give you the floor to fill us up with any information that you wish to tell us.
Okay.
All right. All right, so we're ready to go.
You want the same order?
You want to go in the same order? Okay, same order. Okay, how do you feel the school district can improve the academic achievement of students and the professional development of the staff?
Well, I think what is very crucial right now for our academic achievement is our teachers. Unfortunately, we see a definite correlation between teachers and student improvement. And as we've seen with the loss of teachers that we've had, it greatly impacts their academic achievement. So I think there are many facets to that. I think the one thing that we need to make sure that we are doing is maintaining and retaining our teachers, because our seasoned teachers are what is best for our students, and they are able to help them through the different areas in their academic career. I definitely know that we are seeing growth, especially at an elementary level. We are starting to see it more at a middle school level, but we definitely are not where we should be, but we are getting there. And I know that because being a parent who happens to have children in every building in this district, I have an elementary, a middle school, and a high school student. So I see that through the NWEA scores. So we're starting to see that achievement come up through those scores, but I think there's a lot that we need to do in focusing on retaining our teachers, because I think that's our strongest way for us to improve our academic achievement. From the professional development side, the one thing that I've always heard from multiple people, from Mary Crate, from talking to other administrators in other districts and teachers, we are pretty well known for how well we train our teachers. We train them so well that they keep poaching them from us. And I think it is amazing that we put so much into our young teachers, especially as they're coming in, and give them as much support. So I definitely think we need to maintain that path. I think we need to continue to invest in our professional development. I think it's crucial and important. And I think we need to maintain the best practices that we have been following in regards to our academics and our students.
If you could please share your 3 top priorities for the district and how you see us achieving those goals.
I think our priorities need to also be tied into our biggest challenges. I think the number 1 priority right now for our district needs to be retaining our teachers. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I think that that is the most crucial thing we can do right now. We have to stop the bleed, and I also think that we need to focus on not just retaining our teachers, but retaining other staff members. We need to make sure that we are focusing on social and emotional as well as academic. I think that that's a crucial part of our district. I think we need to focus on the positives and celebrate the good. I think that that also needs to be a goal. I think we need to recognize that we are an amazing district with amazing families and amazing teachers. I think that we've lost sight of that a little bit, and I think that that needs to be a focus and a goal. And I would like to see our district, although I know a lot of it's tied to the funding, start implementing more things that include trades, that include more of those types of classes and education, and trying to do things that are best for all children. Not all children are college bound, and I think that as a district we need to recognize that and focus on that as well.
What qualities, skills, and experience would you bring to the board?
Well, one of the qualities that I have that I think is very, very important is that I'm a mother of 3 children in this district. I think with that comes a lot of experience just in itself. I am also an alma mater of this district. I grew up here. I went here from Covert all the way to Waterford, Vermont. I'm a 1992 graduate. I do hold a bachelor's degree from Open University, as well as an associate's degree from Open Community College. I have a lot of managerial background. That is my professional background, as well as marketing and communications. Public speaking was never my thing until the last couple of years. So that is something that I feel would be good. I am very well versed in our public funding. I've taken a lot of initiative, especially with the creation of the public funding advocacy group. I think my skills in becoming more open and willing to advocate with our legislation, with our legislators, I think that that is important, especially right now because our system is at a crossroads, our state is at a crossroads in regards to education. So I think that that would be very beneficial to our district with already being so ingrained in it in the last year. And also I think just my skills, just as a member of this community and being involved and volunteering and being part of not just our buildings, but our community as a whole.
Identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about and describe how you would balance community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal values and beliefs to determine how to vote on the issue.
You know, we've been faced with so many decisions in the last couple of years that I felt strongly about. I'm not sure recently because I feel that the board has done a good job with some of those decisions, like the restructuring of our pool and fitness, like the challenging with the child care. One issue that I felt strongly about was the closure of our buildings back in 2013 and 14, so I don't know if that would be relevant because I know that's kind of farther back. I understood. I mean, everyone had that emotional response at first, oh my goodness, we're closing buildings. But I also think it was important to look at it from a fiscal perspective and what was the best interest of our district. I think as difficult of a decision as that was, it was a decision that had to be made in order for our survival and to remain viable. I think in those types of decisions, whether or not I felt strongly personally, if I was on the board, I would have to be able to take that aside and look at all the research, look at all the data, and understand how it was impacting our community as a whole. I think it's very important that what a lot of people don't understand is decisions that the board has to make and the administration have to make are also dictated by legislation, and we have to follow state law. I mean, unfortunately, there's really not a lot of choice in that, whether or not we agree with it. So I think as a board member, you have to be able to separate out your personal feelings and put that aside and be able to look at the data and be able to treat it as what would be the best interest of all of us. And in the end, closing those 3 buildings, as hard as it was emotionally for all of the families that were involved, we did make the right decision because it put us in a better financial position. And as we've seen the decline in enrollment, it's something that we would have been faced anyways, as we are seeing all the other schools around us and all the other districts, unfortunately, in that position right now. Farmington just closed a high school. We are looking at what's happening in Benton Harbor. Obviously, Grosse Pointe is closing, so I think that unfortunately was a necessary step to take. So I hope that may answer that.
We're a divided board. Can you please share with us what experiences you have in bringing people together and building bridges to work toward a common cause? And if you could please be specific in your examples.
Having as much management background as I have, you often find that you are always going to find people that are unable to work together. I have said this publicly and privately to every board member that is sitting here and to past board members in the past 2 years, that I think it's important that I don't feel you have to agree on everything. It doesn't matter your personal feelings, but we have to be able to agree to disagree. There has to be cohesion. There has to be a shared goal. There has to be a shared vision. We have to be able to work together for the best interests of our community. After the election in November, before Julie was even had come on the board, and after going through it, we went through that whole year. That was a very divisive election. Obviously, things were happening on our board, and there was not cohesion. I had said, you know, there was one thing that I felt could bring us all together, that I thought, hands down, it didn't matter how we personally felt, it didn't matter what was going on behind the scenes, that the funding was something that we could unite on, that we could come together, that we could work on. I reached out to the board in November. I had board members reach back out to me. John Paul was one of them, Joan was another, and Heather. We started to work on collaboratively trying to put together ways that we could go to the state, that we could start to advocate for our school funding. Because obviously with School Research Finance Collaborative, we know that we are underfunded. So that was one way. There was a lot of differences, and I felt that despite that, we have to rise above it, and we had to work together for a common goal. And I think that that's crucial. At the end of the day, it's not about our personal feelings, it's about our children and our students. And we have to unite to fight to do what's best for them. So that's probably my best example. I wanted to bring everyone together, and I think that we did a really good job. We put together our postcard campaign, we made it to Lansing, we met with 6 legislators, we started letter writing campaigns, we helped each other, we shared things, we shared our experiences, and I think that I would like to see that happen more. I would like to see our board be able to do that. I think the fractures are not helping in any way. I would hope that I would be a positive voice on the board. And I also believe that everyone should have the right to have a voice and should be listened to and should be respected, regardless of whether or not we agree. So hopefully that example is
Great, thank you very much.
Just FYI, 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
Julie, I'll talk very fast.
What do you think are the most important skills for students to have when they graduate?
The most important skills, I think, first and foremost, every student needs to leave here with the ability to read and read well. Reading and writing are the 2 most important things. Those are skills that you need in every aspect of your life. Math is wonderful too. If you could balance a checkbook, that would be great. I mean, I know I didn't carry algebra into my field, but writing and reading, those are essential. But I also think that our children need to have the skills that are best suited to them. I think that we need to focus on not just making everyone college ready, because not everyone is college bound. So we need to focus and help our students find their path, whether it be a 4-year university, whether it be military, whether it be going into the skilled trades, whether it be going into a community college. There's a lot of things I think we need to do, but the biggest skill we need to make sure is that they walk out feeling successful, that they feel supported, that they feel proud of their community, and that they are able to contribute to society in a positive way. And reading and writing are just 2 essential skills that they absolutely have to have in order to do that.
So you have about 3 minutes left. If there's anything else you'd like to say or you want us to know, feel free. You have about 3 minutes.
Well, I would like to say I am grateful for this opportunity. This is something that I am huge for those of you that don't know me. I love this community and I love this district. And I am a huge supporter of this district. I'm a product of this district. I chose to bring my children, my family here to raise my kids. And I feel strongly that we need to celebrate all the good that is here, that we need to recognize that we are an amazing district with amazing staff, with amazing families and amazing children. I would put any one of our teachers up against any other teacher in any other district, and hands down, our teachers would win every time. We need to start focusing on their value, because they are the ones that greatly impact our kids. And I want people to feel proud. It's very difficult as an alum, and people have their preconceived notions of our community and our district, which are unwarranted and unfair, because we are amazing. And this is a wonderful place to live, and this is a wonderful place to raise our children. And the amount of opportunities that are available in this district, people should recognize. From our STEM, from our athletics. I mean, there are so many more opportunities here now than we ever had. I came from the time of the era where there were millages. And we also have an amazing amount of community support here. We have passed 2 major bonds. 2 major bonds. We should be proud of that. We should walk around with our heads held high and be proud of where we came from. It's up to us to change the narrative. It's up to us to celebrate who we are. And I feel like we need more of that, and I would love to be part of that and try to help promote that. I've got a lot of skin in the game. I've got 3 kids, 10 years left in this district. And I'm very proud, and I want my children to feel proud of where they came from. So sorry about the
Close, good job.
Oh, I don't have any jokes. I don't have any jokes. But I do appreciate this, and whatever happens, I will always support this district. I will always be a cheerleader for this district. So my face will still be around, no matter what the outcome happens here today. So I will always do whatever I can to champion for our kids.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ready? Sure. Our next candidate will be Eric Witenmyer.
Oh.
Hello.
Sir?
Welcome, Eric. So we will do this in about 15 minutes. When we start the questions, we'll start a timer. And Heather if we're getting down to the wire, Heather will kind of let you know so you can try to get all the questions in. Each board member will ask one question. It's the same question that we've asked each candidate, or will ask each candidate. And at the end of the 6 questions and your answers, if there's still time left, I'll give you the opportunity to give us any additional information you'd like us to have. Okay? Great. All right. So we will get going and start. Eric, how do you feel the school district can improve the academic achievement of students and the professional development of the staff?
So I think one of the ways that the district has actually moved forward is to adopt the STEM program. The STEM program was a great program to introduce into the district because often there are different learning styles that children have. My son Darian was one of the first students to be able to attend the STEM classrooms, and he went from a student that was always behind on his homework, didn't like to go to school, to a student that started to thrive because STEM was such hands-on learning. And so I think expanding those kinds of programs and trying to help find programs where different learning strategies can be adapted would be really helpful. There are other things that could be done. Unfortunately, one of the stresses on the district, regardless of what challenges we talk about, is going to be funding. And it's easy to come in and say we should have this, we should add this program, that program, we should add additional mentoring or provide funding for teachers to do professional development when we're constantly struggling with funding from the state. And we're constantly struggling with funding because we've lost students out of the district. And so until I think that situation has to be dealt with from the board. It's true that it's the board policy, the board sets the policy, that sort of thing. It's important important to allow the superintendent to make a lot of decisions and run the school and come to the board for those policies. And so I would, work with the superintendent on those things, but I really think that the board needs to start to try to deal with problems in Lansing with appropriate funding that's been last, since proposal A was adopted. Michigan's last for people funding.
Could you please share, kind of piggybacking on this, your 3 top priorities for the district and how you see us achieving those goals?
So I think the three top priorities for, I'm going to say as a board member, the 3 things that I would focus on. Number 1 is working with Lansing to change education funding so that we get the kind of funding that our students deserve, so that they can receive the quality of education that they need. Number 2 is I think that we need to seriously develop a plan to attract and retain students in the district. Unfortunately, we've seen over the past, I don't know what the trend is, 6, 7, 8 years, a lot of student loss. Every time that we lose a student, that's about $7,500 that the district ends up losing. That's causing a crisis in education, not only in Waterford, but across the state. And then I think the third thing that we need to focus on is the $100 million bond project that was bond funding that was passed by the voters. We need to make sure that money is being used in the best way possible so that we can improve the infrastructure of the schools so that the kids have the best learning environment that they can possibly have, and therefore attracting more students into our community. The environment in which kids learn in often is a direct correlation to their achievement.
Thank you. Just want to let you know too, you're just a little less than 10 minutes.
What qualities, skills, and experience would you bring to the board?
I think that over my professional career, I've been a consensus builder, one that tries to find agreement amongst people and tries to bring positive agreement with people. And I really don't think I don't try not to focus on the negative. I think over the course of my work with the school board, we were able to bring some parents together to come in and ask the school board to provide funding for a wrestling room at Mott. We were successful at that. The school board agreed with us. When it came to the bond funding, I think I had a skill in going out to the community. We were interviewed. My family and I were interviewed about the bond proposal. I helped raise money for the bond. We provided poll workers to get the bond passed. We'll hand out information at the election sites. And then I think the last thing is that I have a relationship with people in Lansing. One of the things that I'm doing right now, as a matter of fact, is I'm working with opinion leaders in Lansing. They have a hearing in Waterford on public funding for education. I have 2 State Board of Education members. One is the chair, Cassandra Albrecht, and Michelle Bechtel have agreed to come in and be part of a hearing to discuss the governor's proposal on education funding. And today I received notice that Dr. Arson from MSU that has published a study on education funding is going to join us. And so I think that I have a skill of bringing together those opinion leaders so that we can start to educate the community about what's happening with education funding from Lansing.
Okay, I have a long question here, so I'm gonna type. Identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about and describe how you would balance community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal value and beliefs to determine how to vote on this issue.
So I would talk about a decision that was made several years ago when there was a discussion around the potential privatization of child care workers. For those of you that don't know, there was a proposal to try to save money in the district by privatizing our child care workers. I was able to go to the bid opening and analyze the bids, discuss with the district's attorney what the bids, some terms of what was in the bids. And then I went to the school board meeting and made a presentation about why I thought that the privatization proposal was not good for the district. And the reason it wasn't good for the district is it was going to take 17% money out of the district and essentially send that as an administrative fee to Grand Rapids. And ultimately, I think that I wouldn't say that the school board concurred with me, but child care workers were not privatized. And so, in part, I did that because of my professional background. At the time, I was a union representative for the American Federation of Teachers, and we represented the child care workers. But over the years, because we represented the child care workers and the paraprofessionals, I became to understand intensely what the work was for those employees in the school district. And so I was pretty proud that the school district ended up making the decision not to privatize those child care workers.
Thank you. We are a divided board, and so can you please share with us what experiences you have in bringing people together and building bridges to work toward a common cause? Please be specific in your examples.
I'm going to be real specific. My sons are in the room, Donnie and Darian. So I'm going to talk and be open about my personal life in this instance. Unfortunately, sometime after Donnie and Darian's mother and I married, we ended up going through a divorce. Divorces often are not particularly pleasant things to go through. It was difficult, to be honest with you. But somehow through that process, and I don't think that there's anything more contentious than a bad divorce. Somehow we were able to mend fences over the years. And we put our interests aside and put our kids' interests ahead of our own in many instances. We got to the point now where she actually moved into my house. And the reason she moved into my house is because we needed to provide enough funding for our kids' college education. And so, despite the fact that we had a poor history that led to divorce, we knew that the best thing to do was to put our own self-interest aside and focus on our kids. And I think that we need to do the same thing here in Wagner. And I'm proud of the relationship that I built with Donnie and Darian's mother. I think that they are happier kids because we've been able to mend fences, and it's one of the proudest things that I've done. So I hope that's specific.
Very specific, appreciate it, thank you, Eric.
Eric, we got about 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Thank you.
What do you think are the most important skills for students to have when they graduate?
I think that the most important skill is critical thinking. Because I think that if you go through life and don't challenge authority, if you don't challenge even your parents, my son died and challenged me one time, he pierced his ear, I couldn't believe it. And I always told him, I said, I'm never gonna tell you because I told you so. And he asked me, why can't I have a pierced ear? And I sat there, I was so mad at myself for telling him that, but I think that those critical thinking skills are incredibly important. Obviously, reading and math, from a curriculum standpoint, are the keys to long-range success. But I think critical thinking skills is the most important thing for a student.
Thank you. So we got about 1 minute and 30 seconds left.
Okay.
If you want to take that and let us know anything you want us to do.
Well, I want to thank not only the board, but the community for being here. I ran for school board a number of years ago. I actually ran the year that the school board member that ended up resigning actually won. And so I received a lot of support. I received a little over 7,300 votes. Unfortunately, the next election, I wasn't able to run because I got a new job working for the Teamsters Healthcare Fund. And so I was traveling all over the country dealing with healthcare issues. And just so you know, I won't go into why that's important, but the Teamsters Healthcare Fund is the same type of healthcare fund that MESA is for the NBA. So I have an expertise in the healthcare system that is here in Michigan, or in Wagner. I graduated from Michigan State with a BS in political science, public administration. I've got years of labor relations experience in working for the American Federation of Teachers. I've negotiated labor agreements in the Detroit public school system. As a representative of employees here, I've got to talk to, and we had thousands of conversations with employees. So I just ask for your support.
Perfect timing. Thank you, Eric. Let's give them a couple of minutes just to figure out what's on their phone. All right. Okay. All right, so we can take a 5-minute recess. We'll take a 5-minute recess if anybody has to use the lavatory or stand up and stretch, and we'll figure out Heather's phone. And we'll get back in about 5 minutes. Yeah, no, I actually said, how far am I? Yeah.
You get deliberate, yeah. It's kind of fun, so deliberate.
I know. Oh, mine's graduating from college. But he's bad. Guess what Sarah dance with next month? Don't say anything. We're going to Wichita for her 30 weeks. Colleen had her first year of teaching, had my baby sister. There's 18 years between us. Oh, Debbie, Megan, do you remember Megan White? She's Ann Ritchie's best friend's daughter. Okay, so Megan, my sister, Jamie, she's her sister. Basically, Megan's my backup sister. So, bring those three sisters going down to surprise me. I was like, I want to go down there. There was just a disposal. You know, right. You know, they're like, who are you when you're with your mother?
That's when you're the breeder. But then if you're the racer, it's to the one.
No, they're
I speak career choice. Or the surgeon.
And then, when I went to Joseph here, right, and I wanted to be the parent that remembers I'm probably 20 years ago now. Yeah, or somehow mother got called oh, okay, I want to watch water, but it's you can watch my hair. No, where does it go?
Oh, it's
It's inappropriate that you get in conversation. Yes, and he didn't, but it is, and he may have, it's drunk. He was, since with it, I
drove. She's now in,
come on back.
she lived alone in a big house, or I don't know, Andy was with her, but now she's moved to Inn at Castle Lake.
That would be good too.
And she can drive for a long time. And there's people that know, so I can get something happen.
Well, you know, that's my niece. She's still right, so she goes, I got to know to Miss Morris's wedding, and you guys didn't. How are you?
Well, Elaine,
I mean, I didn't go to law school.
she was a time she found, and they called her and said that she couldn't drive. It wasn't all that, it was her heart. You know, she had, it was her heart. Right. She wanted to I can't remember what she had. She had a job.
I'm pretty sure.
I remember, I forgot what she had, but she could do it, she was like, the band be like, I could tell that she stiffened up and she felt like it was gonna happen. It turned out it was her. She had had to have a valve replacement. But I don't have that. That's what's in AFib. Yes. Cindy, it's her own translation.
Oh, really?
No, that's yeah.
So it'll be there next
My brother wants to but that it's nerve damage, and it never goes away.
Yes, ready? Okay. All right, we're going to reconvene the meeting and have our next candidate, Mike Kristen.
Hello.
Hello there.
Hello.
Welcome. So tonight, each of us, each board member will ask you a question. There'll be 6 questions. It's the same question that we have asked each candidate, and we'll ask each candidate. Heather, once I start the first question, we'll set the timer at 15 minutes. As we get closer, if you're getting toward there, she'll kind of give you how much time you got left, so you can try to get all questions in. If you have time left after the last question, I'll give you the floor to kind of say what you'd like. Thank you. All right.
It's a little bit like a game show.
That's right. All right, we are ready. How do you feel the school district can improve the academic achievement of students and the professional development of the staff?
I would say that in order to increase the academic achievement of students as well as the professional development of staff, is going to be dependent on changing perception. And what I mean by that is this. Changing perception of the importance of Waterford schools within the community and the importance of public education more generally. We have now at this time a crisis that is facing public education. And the crisis stems from a distrust or a downplaying of the importance of public education at large. So one thing we need to be able to do as a board, as a community, as a school district, is point to the importance of getting that education because it's what opens doors, it's what opens access, it's what also holds people to high standards. Increasing high standards, holding people accountable, making sure that staff have resources is going to be dependent on making the case for public education. We can bring that a little closer to home. Waterford schools are incredible. And one thing that I would say, one reason I'm running is because I had a terrific experience in Waterford. I'm now a faculty member at Michigan State University. I have my doctorate, and so much of that is because of the education I experienced here. I'm happy to have my twin sons here in this school district. They are having a terrific experience here. And so, as we're making the case for public education generally, we need to talk about and speak the truth about Waterford Public Schools and the important role that they play in our communities. I can tell you, when I have students from Waterford Kettering, Waterford Mott in my classes, they shine. They shine. And it happens. It happens. And you should hear that from me. Can I, if it's okay, I want to come back to the professional development.
Sure, I'm sorry.
I'm skipping it. We have faculty, we have teachers and staff who are leaving the district, and we need to change that. And one thing that happens is the faculty and the teachers who come here receive terrific training. I should know because I'm married to one of the people who puts on those trainings. They come, they bring a wealth of experience to Waterford, they gain even more experience, they work in a diverse school that has all sorts of wonderful initiatives, and then they leave. And that's a problem. That's a problem. And so if we can change the perception of the schools, Waterford schools, as well as point to the importance of public education more generally, we can hopefully begin to dam that flow outward from the schools.
Could you share with us your 3 top priorities for the district and how you see us achieving those goals?
Number 1 priority, student success. We need to make sure that all of our students are recognizing the value of the education that they're receiving here. They are able to recognize and access post K-12 education, whether that's college, whether that's vocational training, whatever it might be. We need to make sure that our students have access to and are getting some sort of post K-12 education. And so raising achievement, raising test scores, raising all of that data you find in My School data is going to be dependent on we come back to that, what I just mentioned, changing perception. And that's, as I said, about making the case for public education, Waterford schools, but it's also going to take some work from the board, making sure that we're out there, and if given the honor of serving on this board, this is what I would be most excited to do, is to get out there and to talk about student success. What does it take? What are the successes we have now? I wrote in my letter of interest, we need to see Waterford schools through an asset-based model, not a deficit model. That is, we don't need to say, here's what needs to be fixed all the time. What we could rather do is point to, here are the assets that we have, here are the strengths that we have. We build on those, because those are the things that will help to give us our unique identity, but also will help to remedy those things that need fixing. So student achievement, we do that by changing perception. And stop, and as I said, to making sure that we can attract and retain the best staff and teachers. As I go through the board notes and I see so many resignations, and when I hear stories, when I talk to friends who are teachers here and they're putting their jobs elsewhere, it concerns me. Because as I said, I went through Waterford schools, my children are going through Waterford schools, my wife works in Waterford schools, I have friends and deep roots in Waterford schools, and I want to make sure that we can play to our strengths.
Thank you. You're at about 9:18.
What qualities, skills, and experience would you bring to the board?
So, being a faculty member at a large Big Ten university, academic departments are self-governing, which means everything from curriculum to personnel development, evaluation is done in-house. And so that requires effort, it requires heavy lifting, but it also requires making sure that we're constantly aligning our vision. What do we want our students to be? What are we as a department? What are our goals? Aligning those visions with our structures, and then going and championing those visions and those structures. I mention these things because that is so much of what my daily work is, apart from trying to help 7,500 students a year learn to write. We want to make, so in coming to the board, I hope to bring that skill set. Let's make sure that we have the right sort of vision for us as a board and as a district that reflects a certain set of values, speaks to our strengths, and supports student success. After we have that vision, let's make sure that we have the infrastructure to support that vision. Let's have alignment. Here's what we are, here's what we want to be, here are our values. And then afterwards, let's make sure that our structures, the way that we communicate to each other as board members, the way that we communicate to the broader community, reflect that vision and those values. And then finally, let's go out and let's make the case. Let's communicate. Let's make sure that not just the people who reside within Waterford's boundaries know about our strengths and our potential, but also the rest of the state and the county. So if given the honor to serve on this board, I'd take stock of what we have. Because I think as I look at you 6 wonderful, capable people, I think that we have much of what we need, and we can begin to build some structures to tap into this, the outward facing, support student success, and tell the story more. Thank you.
Okay, I have a bit of a long question, so bear with me here. Identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about, and describe how you would balance community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal value and beliefs to determine how to vote on the issue.
That's a long question. So let me talk about three things, and these are the things that jump to mind here. You all voted on the new restructuring of the pool and fitness centers. Now, this is one thing I do when we think about the board. Isn't one that we would normally associate with being in the purview of the board. But this is a really great decision because I think it speaks to the strengths. It speaks to the importance of investing in our schools. And we can look out because you all know that we have people looking in and saying, look at what this community has done with the pool. So you guys have, in restructuring how we use that, are attracting people and showing off our assets. I feel strongly about this, as I've said, changing the perception, speaking to our strengths is something I feel strongly about. And that's what I was really impressed and happy to see that. Another decision, maybe this is several decisions, and I've already mentioned this, when reading over and watching board meetings, and when I have been reading about so many resignations, which as the board approves, I'm concerned. So we have to figure out how to change that. And one thing that we need to do to change that thing is to recognize that there is a lot of factors that go into these decisions of the teachers as well as the board. So we need to be attuned not just to state funding or law, but we need to be able to recognize the systems that give way to these decisions. So in balancing all of those things, I would make sure, or I would hope to make sure that we're always attending to the multiple factors, the multifaceted influences that go into anything. Because I ran twice in 08 and 10, and I lost. But I also learned quite a bit. And what I learned was that people have, in 08 and 10, we began to see something that's sort of coming to a peak now. Cynicism, a distrust, that's really worrying. And if we can recognize not just one part, like school funding, teacher evaluation, but the way that all of these things play in board decisions, in teacher professional development, and in student success, I think that we'd be set up for success in the district. One third thing I talk about here is, as I watched the last meeting about replacing the vacancy, I was sort of curious about what happened, because we had something that was really important, but it seemed that there was something of a disconnect about how the people were going to be chosen for the position. So again, that should not be read as a critique, but if given the honor of serving on the board, I would want to be attentive to the factors, the larger systems, local governance, the bylaws, the funding, elections, community outreach, the voices. So to answer your question, Member Torres, being attentive to the systems and not just one piece would be something that I would be apt to do with the honor of serving on the board.
Thank you.
We have about 3 minutes.
Thank you.
I'll read this quick. We are a divided board. Can you share with us what experience you have in bringing people together and building bridges to work towards a common goal or cause? And please be specific in your example.
Sure. So when you work in an academic department, and we're a big academic department, 60-something odd people, to get everyone on board takes work. But again, it's about having structures, because you can't communicate or deliberate about a particular question, object, if you don't have the processes and procedures in place to equitably deliberate about those things. Because what ends up happening is you're debating not just about the question at hand, but how to actually solve the question. So I oversaw the transition of 20% of our first-year writing courses to a hybrid format. Now that's about 700 students, and that entailed about 10 people, 10 faculty, as well as a college dean, as well as a department head. And so what we did from the very get-go was to develop a vision. What is this project going to entail? What do we want to achieve? We put in place structures. And what I mean by structures are weekly meetings. We divide work, but we also developed a research protocol that kept each other accountable. Here's what you're assigned to do. Here's what you're assigned to do. This is the data that we're gathering, and in hopes of answering this question. Now, when we had those structures in place, any deliberation about the success of this endeavor became so much more, conversations were efficient, they were equitable, because we weren't debating about how to debate about these things. We actually had answers. And so we've given the board the position of serving on the board, make sure that we have those things. Because again, I feel you are wonderful, capable people whom I respect very much. And if we had those structures in place where we could have equitable and meaningful deliberation, divisions would solve themselves. And that's what I propose.
Thank you.
42 seconds.
What do you think are the most important skills for students to have when they graduate?
I'm a writing teacher, and I can tell you as a writing teacher, we're downplayed in favor of STEM. Yet that position flies in the face of everything we know and what the research suggests. Those people who major in highly specialized things, they have a tough time. We have to make sure that our students are have broad skills and deep knowledge. And that's what I would hope that we develop here in Waterford.
Perfect time. Thank you very much. Okay, we have one candidate left. Louis Schimmel will be our next candidate.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. Did we?
I just got a picture of that break. I went out and saw. Well, thank you for being with us tonight. So you know, each board member will ask you one question. It's the same question that we've asked each candidate this evening. Once we start the first question, we'll start the timer, 15 minutes. As we get closer, we'll kind of tell you a few minutes left, 4 minutes left. And if there are the 6 questions, if there's time, we'll let you know, and you can give us any additional information you'd like.
Fair enough.
Okay, sure. So we will start. How do you feel the school district can improve the academic achievement of students and the professional development of the staff?
Well, I'd have to answer that by telling you that if you were to select me to be on the board, that would not be an area where I'm very strong in terms of being an educator. I was never an instructor, an educator, or teacher. So I'm the kind of a guy that when I don't know something very well, I rely heavily on my contacts and people I know. And I would rely heavily in that case on good administrators that I would hope that we've hired. And I rely heavily on teachers who are the ones that are on the front line delivering the very important things to our kids, dealing with their minds. But I think a school board has 7 members. I think other members on the board may have more talent than I have in the area of knowing curriculum and those kinds of things. So I'm a business guy, a finance guy, and I probably, you hit me on probably an area that I would rely on others' knowledge to help me make decisions in that area. Okay?
If you could please share what you would see as your three top priorities for the district and how you would see us achieving those goals.
Well, I'm not gonna pull any punches here. I think one of the top priorities is that I believe this board education, the six of you are fractured, to put it quite frankly. And I don't mean that to be telling you that I hate you all or I don't like you, but I am suggesting that I don't think it's any secret that the district is at the school board level fractured. And that's basically why I threw my name in the hat. I didn't expect to go through this process. I was more interested in saying to all of you that I'm the kind of a guy, if you know my reputation, and if you've looked at my resume, I've often been called Mr. Fix-It in the municipal area. And I thought maybe that I could donate some of my knowledge, skills, numerous experiences. I'm a pretty old guy. I've been through the ringer many times. I know I've worked with 4 different governors. I've bailed out 3 different municipalities. I've been hired by the mayor of Warren to be the city administrator. And incidentally, I was on this school board for 8 years, elected 2 different times, a lifetime ago. And I was president 2 of the years, so I know a little bit about the Waterford School Board. And so that is the kind of thing that I think that I could bring to Waterford. You asked me 3 things, I think I've given you 4 of the 3 yet, but I wanted to give you a gist of what kind of a person I am.
Thank you.
What qualities, skills, and experience would you bring to the board?
Well, I think my resume pretty well covers that. I mean, I worked for, as they say, 4 governors, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans. I feel very confident that I can work with all people. I don't care if they're Democrats or Republicans, and I think that's been demonstrated by the people who have appointed me to these various positions. I think I've done a pretty good job of straightening out distressed communities. I've worked with numerous school boards, numerous city councils, county commissions, and all kinds of boards in the area of finance. And finance is my strong point, and you may not know it, but ever since I left the school board in whatever year that was, 1976, I believe, I've really been involved with this school district on a donated basis because it's my community and I feel very strong that you ought to give back your community. But I've been involved with this district with every bond issue they've ever issued. And I've been close to, I can't say close, but I've dealt with every finance director you've had since the days of Joe Geddes, which is probably a thing you don't remember because you probably were born then. But I've been involved with financing in this district forever, to this day. I don't know the new superintendent. I haven't had a chance to know what's going forward, but did I answer your question?
Yes. So I have a long question here.
I have a long answer.
Identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about and describe how you would balance community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal value and beliefs to determine how to vote on the issue.
Well, you know, my concern about this board, and I might want to tell you, it's about many boards. It isn't just this board. I'm not trying to pick on this board, but I think the mistake that gets made is board members sometimes forget their mission. And the mission here is the kids, their minds, and the front line is the teachers. And we all have to do everything we can to support that. That is the teachers. I'm so old now that I see my kids and my grandkids go through school, and I know and have seen and have experienced how much one teacher can make in a kid's life if she takes them under her wing and does something and takes an interest in them. And I'm talking about gifted kids and non-gifted kids. Kids with trouble and kids that are very gifted. So that's my whole thing here. I'm interested in the financing of the district. I'm interested in looking at, I think it's pretty clear I know how to read a financial document by now. I would be very interested in looking at all the Waterford financial figures and trying to squeeze every dime out I could to send it down to the teachers who are the front line. And I also feel that everybody else, the maintenance staff, the school board, ought to be on the same page of supporting the teachers. So, did I miss something? Your question was long, I might have forgotten.
You got it.
Pardon?
You got it.
All right.
Thank you. As you have indicated, we are a divided board. Can you please share with us what experiences you have had in bringing people together, building bridges to work towards a common cause or goal, and if you could be specific in your examples?
That's why I believe I decided to come here tonight. Is, well, let's just look at this. I've negotiated tons of union contracts all over the state of Michigan in my role of being an emergency manager in 3 cities and being the city administrator of the city of Warren at the request of the Democratic mayor. People sometimes say, oh, that guy's a Republican. I tell you, I work with both sides. It doesn't matter to me. I could care less. But your question you're asking me is,
If you could
what
help
can I do to help mend the situation?
build
right?
bridges towards a common cause, yes.
I probably have negotiated labor contracts in the toughest place in the United States, in Wayne County. I negotiated 8 labor contracts in the city of Warren. And in the city of Warren, this is just the feel I want to give you. After all of those labor contracts, we had our differences, and we certainly went at it tooth and nail. But, as a school board member, our responsibility is really tough as a school board member because we really sit on the taxpayer side of the negotiating table. So as much as I would like to give the world to the teachers, the firefighters, and the policemen, I can't do that if I don't have the money to give them. So we have to spend our money in the very best way possible, and we need to deliver the services that, as I stated before, that we can, the best way we possibly can. And, as I say, I believe that, the point I was trying to make to you is, I believe that at the end of the negotiations, in nearly every labor contract I've ever negotiated, the feeling towards me was, that damn guy was tough, but I want to tell you, I respect him for what he did. He did the best he could for us under the circumstances. And I feel on this board that I could get the factions, whoever you are, to come together. I don't believe at all that it's really wonderful to have a 4-3 split on a board of education. Now, some people will say, oh man, that means everybody's, on their toes and they're looking at everything and so on. When I was on the Wagner School Board way back when, we had 7 members. We had our differences. I was on the board with a guy by the name of Stan Kurzman. You may not remember, but there's names all around your buildings. He was a great guy. He was a liberal guy. I, at that time, was a pretty conservative guy. I don't think Stan and I ever voted anything other than the same else apart in our political thinking at that time. I feel like I have the ability to get everybody to get on the same page, and I don't agree that 4-3 is good. I think it would be good if the school board got closer to 6-1 or 7-0 in 100% support of everybody. I know people love to go after administrators. I know they love to go after certain teachers. I know they love to go after certain things. I'm not that kind of a guy. I think we can talk these things out. I think we can all get on the same page, and I'd like to see the school board get united, quit bickering, and get back to where we can get some 7 votes.
What do you think are the most important skills for students to have when they graduate?
Well, are we talking about a gifted student, or are we talking about something other than, I think the most important skills they should have is depending on what direction they're headed. I'm back to, I'm not an educator, but I want them to have the tools that are relevant today. Obviously, in my age, we didn't even know what the heck a computer was. I would suggest that people have to be very good in the math, English, and educational skills to either go to college, to go to a community college, or to help them deal with other problems and issues they have in their lives.
Well, there's about 2 minutes left, so feel free to take the 2 minutes and let me know anything you'd like.
Somebody mentioned to me something about, that guy who was on the Mackinac Center. There can't be one thing good about that guy. The Mackinac Center believes in outsourcing and all this sort of thing. I would like to, if you've got the time, to tell you about that. I was in the most difficult municipalities in the state of Michigan with people throwing up their hands, not knowing what the heck to do. And I take you back to yesteryear, the city of Ecorse or the city of Hamtramck, 2 cities I was in. Those cities were in such bad shape when I walked in the door, appointed by the governor and the treasurer and so on. And by the way, I work very closely with numerous people in Lansing in those ventures. I know Lansing pretty well. But picture yourself in my shoes, walking in the door of the city of Ecorse or the city of Hamtramck, and situations like 7 weeks of garbage sitting on the street not collected, the city's only garbage truck broken and not able to fix, no money in the bank to buy a new garbage truck, no way to handle numerous public service things like potholes, street sweepers, let alone being able to pay the police or fire or anything like that. If you're in Hamtramck, and my only savior is the garbage that piled up for 7 weeks was in the wintertime, so that the rats problem wasn't as bad as the flu then. But when you're in those desperate situations, you can't borrow money because you've messed up so bad for so many years. You didn't pay any vendors, so nobody wants to do any work for you. When you're in a desperate situation like that, absolutely. The only way out of that for me was to contract out services, and with the idea that we could get the garbage picked up and so on. But you have to hear the rest of my story. The Mackinac Center came to me.
Actually, I'm gonna cut you, I hate to do that, but it's not fair to the other candidates. We stopped them
Okay.
15 minutes. So, I appreciate your.
I'd love to tell you the rest of the story, but I don't want to violate. Maybe I can finish that story out. Am I supposed to leave?
It's up to you. You can leave or you can stay.
I'm gone.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, with that, we will go to audience comments. Currently, I have one green card. We'll start with this person. If anybody else wishes to address the board, you have the right. We'll give you 5 minutes. We ask that you direct everything to the board. We'll start with Sally Hart.
Would you like me to stand?
It's up to you.
My name is Sally Hart, and not the first time I've spoken before you or the township board. If it were not for Dr. Hurt's camera, there would be no record of what went on tonight, other than sanitized minutes that came out. A month, 6 weeks ago, I could not get the education or the government channels on my cable. I still cannot get them. At that time, I called the cable commissioner, who said Comcast is installing new equipment or something. He blames it on Comcast, the public. I can watch the soccer games, I can watch the hockey games, I can watch all that kind of stuff. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in watching these meetings, these things happening live, or watching the replays. And my plea is, if board members, please, if you can put pressure somehow, audience members, if you can put pressure somehow to get these meetings being televised. Yes, I know I can go to my computer, but number one, that means I have to have a computer that is not in the process of dying. And I can watch replays on the computer also. I want to watch these things live, televised, and we do not even have a representative from the school board or the township here to video this tonight. Thank you. Oh, one thing that we pushed in the last election was transparency. Transparency in what is being done. Stuff should not be done behind closed doors, and when you have a meeting where people cannot view it, let's say someone is ill at home and they can't get out to it, but they want to watch it, that is not being transparent.
Is there anyone else that wishes to address the board? Sure.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
We don't take questions, but you can.
Well, I can try and then maybe. I just am wondering how the process for the decision-making will happen for this evening.
It will be in the open meeting when we're done. We will start deliberating, we'll be discussing, and if we come to a consensus and make a vote, and there's at least 4 votes, then that person would be the next board. All right. Anyone else wish to address them? Sure.
I think it's too bad that you can only take one candidate, because all of 5 candidates had wonderful and inspiring things to say and to share, and they all did a wonderful presentation on what they had to offer, and I think it's too bad you can only take one.
Is there anyone else?
The only thing that I'm going to ask is that as you're making this decision, I like what one of the candidates said about having a common vision. And I really think at this point it's a really good chance to start new. We have a new superintendent who started. We have a new school board member joining us. And if we could get a common vision in place about the kids of Waterford and about making this school district the best it can possibly be, so that people are knocking down our doors to get our kids in. So if you keep all of your personal, I know that's hard, keep all the personal feelings out and make the decision based on who's going to help move this school district forward. I just would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Okay. So at this time, I will leave it up to this board. We would like to take a 10-15-minute recess. If you don't mind, everybody can use the lavatory, get a drink of water, stretch before we start, or we can also go right into delivery.
I didn't leave the last break, so I personally want to just 5 more breaks.
All right.
That was like 15 minutes, so we kind of collect our notes as well.
Sure. You want 15? Is that all right? So it's 8:05, if we can reconvene at 8:20. Julie, good with that?
I got it.
You want to do 3?
I've seen 10 minutes, but.
10, okay. All right, we'll do 10 minutes. So it's 8:05 at 8:15, we'll reconvene.
But you would say, there must be some
Celebrate with an outside sun. Win
I
either way.
I like the way you think. It's a win-win.
Look at how moody he is. It's like, oh yeah, I just realized there was.
I know.
What? Oh. He's been on my show. Yeah, 3 times. Yeah, I mean, we know the family, and wonderful, just kind of wonderful people for politics. And he was talking about standards. Not like, we've been here for that long.
I wanted to say that I'm
Guy on board, and he was, but he never sent his kids, he sent his kids to private school. Which was an issue. Yeah, he was on Wagner. That's the kind of school where people like that who don't really have a vested. There's 2 people like immediately know, the other ones are like, but and it's sad to say because I really like him.
Kate and Josh were 5 years before they were kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I keep on telling people.
I know. Oh, of course. That's the thing. That's what I know. Jason was now on that. He says, boy, if you and why would you do that? Just retire in.
I wish I knew that.
Yeah. No, they're very vindictive. I would not want them.
And he's been retired.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Do that.
The other 3.
I know you were. You played well.
I like Margaret because I knew her whole family. Yeah. And I really like her.
Right. I told him that I'm not going out.
Yeah. But he is
I'm actually
Travel down.
and they sell and they privatize. No.
That's good.
There's a certain elements there. No. And it's like you said, it's not
make sure that we can.
I mean, he knows.
Yeah.
Her dad was a teacher, and her mom was wonderful.
All those acute chronic.
No, I haven't watched that in a long time. They put some up in Right.
Right, she's not educated. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But they're in school. Yeah, I still love it. I mean, I like it. I really like it. Talk about come up with a process as you go along. You have to put a process into place. Oh, then, if you don't decide on that first.
I enjoy watching this.
You know, I mean, it's not just my hate problems or, but I know that there's a yeah.
Put their brain to it. I know. Now she's fun now. She'll put a lot of
Going down to get, come back.
I've been trying to get you guys going, they're doing a good job. I just have to
I didn't know it then.
And there's, you know,
What you can do.
His seat. I saw.
Well, there is, what you can do.
right.
Weightlifting and conditioning. August 12th.
I know, here it's still 29.
Monterey's class and he's put down Wagner schools. They do. I mean, I've seen, you know, I was one time in physical therapy, you know, and a young guy. He's very, I would never say my kids teach this no, and that's doing more. So that's a failure of the administration or, you know, they need to be out there letting people know, you know, yeah, we have great people. I mean, maybe Barra, CEO, you know, graduated from Wagner, you know.
I'm well aware. What can I do anymore?
Right. No, it needs to be fixed. Right. But if you have a positive attitude and if you support your teachers, because when you're putting down teachers, who's going to tell you're okay now with your, you know, for an individual who's got your, yeah. Was it just like something stuck to you? Oh, sure, that makes a difference. Right. Right.
But they said no.
It'll work its way. Oh, yeah.
Big choice.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I was giving it to a person wanted to stay home, you know.
Right, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I hope you were able to see it, because Riley, I think, got the whole thing on tape. I just wanted to see it in person. You know, with John and the little one, and then his dad, you know, his dad watching. What a picture. And John was eloquent, you know, I mean, he just said all the right things, it was wonderful.
That was
Oh, I know. But look what they accomplished, you know. Oh, sure she will. And you know, and that's a unique story, but not completely unique, because there are all kinds of families who are doing that. We know that, you know, and you know, so people, but to know that you know, yeah, just so, I mean, there's people in Pontiac separated, or people in Dearborn yeah. No. And then she was born that way.
On all the
Just got rid of this monster. He's a monster.
I had taken two classes. Oh, no, your stuff, you gotta take more classes. There was no brain on boxing. There was a group, yeah.
I hope not. I mean, you hear from a lot of friends. Then you hear
They're
from
real close together. At one point, they lived together, but they support each other.
for these people
Work with each other.
you know, you just wonder where they're
Kind of, and they
so it's scary to me. So I think
he
it's
had
a
help, a lot of help,
possibility.
obviously. He was like a DJ.
Right.
They moved down there. They kind of got their own.
Yeah. I don't know. frightens me. But but John made the point, like about Angelina, thinking maybe she should have a birth certificate. And it's true, I mean, I was just reading, that they have, they do pick up with US citizens, and sometimes it takes years to get it sorted out. I mean, it's horrible.
No,
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
he was strong.
The guy who works at Open Schools, refugees, his name is Wasan. Yeah, Wasan, yeah, he's great, yeah. Okay, yeah. He came and spoke to the Wagner Refugee Welcome Alliance, where Larry and I are going We're having a thing in September, at our church, Methodist 59. It's called Ask Former Refugees, and Reverend Charles, Parker, I can't remember. He's a pastor in Schimmel, he's kind of leading us now, and he has done this program before, so he's trying to get like 3 or 4 different, like, I think maybe Syrian and Hispanic, but that's too hard, because people are scared right now, they don't want to talk, because they're in danger, their friends are being like, it's in September, the 5th Sunday in September, we're having it at Sunday. I'll let you know about it. I will. That's right. Right. So we're going to really push it at our church. We've been doing this ever since then. No, that's why I'm sitting here. Oh. You want to stay? I'll stay.
Everything else. I know, that's why when Corey said, hey, how would you play with us? I am not. Right. It's fun. It's different. I never really guitar in my life.
Correct. On Facebook maybe, but not.
It's waiting, I know it's waiting for me to throw in a couple stuff that they want to hear on. It takes my time to figure out.
Monitoring?
Yeah.
We don't have that really. I said, oh, good. Thank you very much.
Very good presentation.
Good.
Yeah. Fine. Really fine. He made a very good presentation. When I got strong in attack, and he addressed it straight on, fracturing. Oh, but I think I'm very good. I was at
87. Are you ready to go?
It would make more sense and spread out.
Ready? All right, at this time, we'll reconvene the meeting, call the meeting back to order. There is really no set rules here except discussion between this board. And if at any point a board member feels like there might be support, they can make a motion and see if there would be support. There would have to be at least 4 votes for that person to be elected to fill out the remainder of the seat until November of next year. If not, we still have a meeting on Thursday, but we would have to have this done by midnight Saturday, or else it would go to open schools where they will make the decision. So at this time, I'll open the floor up to any board member who would like to make any comments. Mrs. Sutton.
It just occurred to me when we did this in our recent superintendent search that we actually, after the interviews, went through each candidate one by one and shared our comments.
Sure.
I'm just wondering, given that there is no process and no facilitator, if that might be an equitable way to talk through what we heard in the interviews. And
We certainly can.
it's up to the board. I mean, this is a board decision,
I
so.
would agree with that.
Sure.
Okay.
You want to start?
I guess I would start with a couple general comments, if I could. To the community and to all of the candidates. John Hall and I were just talking, and I know every single board member, we have all had individual conversations to say how very blessed we are to live in a community where 15 people step forward of such caliber and such integrity. They want nothing more than to serve the Waterford School District in this important and meaningful way. And so our task is an exceptionally difficult one. We have to start by acknowledging how incredibly grateful we are and what an amazing community we live in, that we had 15 people step forward, and those of you that saw the interviews, the caliber of the individuals being just so amazing. And so it's an incredibly difficult decision for us to make. That being said, I do hope that this is a decision that we do make. Our community has entrusted us to make this decision. And if we can't come to an agreement as a board, it will go to the open schools. And I know that has happened on many boards. I am very hopeful that that is not the case here. My thoughts on that are that nobody knows more than this community what this community needs. It is a local decision. It is a Waterford decision, and we are here for the people of Waterford. So I am hopeful that we can find common ground, and as many people have said, and I know every board member feels this way, I'm not speaking for just me, please know that, but that we want to find common ground, and in this process, we are hopeful that that's what comes through, so. Okay.
Well said.
So
Does anybody else feel free to?
Well, I just made comment about the pool of candidates. We had 15 fantastic candidates that applied for this. I've been following what's been happening in Rochester. They just selected a board member last night, and they had 10 candidates that applied. I look at the caliber of those candidates, and I compare them to the caliber of what we have, and I'm just so impressed with Waterford and what we bring to the table, the community involvement, the intellectual piece, the teachers that are living in the community that want to contribute, the parents that want to contribute. I mean, it's just, it is a beautiful thing. And I'm very happy to live in a community where we have so many people that are interested in serving in this, very important capacity. I'll say that, this evening, watching all of the candidates, very impressive. A lot of great qualities. Somebody in the audience said, it was right here, that everybody has something that they could really bring to the table, really be fantastic on this board and make us stronger in one way or another. We have to come to a consensus on a decision that's going to require compromise amongst our board. It's going to require talking things out. I think we're all fans of transparency and realizing that this is the process that we've elected to do and that we're going to follow so that we can make a decision
I'll just basically comment on the candidates. Again, it's, like I want to say, they're a great pool. Again, I almost felt similar to the superintendent evaluation. No offense, Mr. Superintendent, but we have sharp people up here that love my community. I call it mine because it is mine, yours, it's ours. They all have strengths. The comment was made like, geez, Joey, we can't pick more, and it makes me think, I'm glad I'm not being picked by this board going against these people, because I would not be here. They shine far brighter than I do. But in going through the candidates, Margaret Bryce, she was a teacher for 30 years. She's a lifelong resident. I graduated high school, went to elementary school with her. So I've known her forever. She's a great girl. It's just, she cares about the community. Kristen Wagner, an up and coming, a parent that has kids in the schools. She's been coming to our meetings. She doesn't get the $30 like I get. And she's advocating at the state level with 3 kids. She's doing a terrific job. And she's come to the board and raised some questions, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because when I ran for the board, I was raising questions. When we talked last week about people that we liked or didn't like, we put this person on pile because they questioned me. I questioned the board. I questioned it then, I questioned it today. I'm not trying to be popular, I'm not trying to win any contest. I should probably be a little nicer, but it's not what I do per se. Eric Lindemeyer, a parent that's been here forever. He, come and advocated for the wrestling program, and we were able to turn things around because he was able to bring people together and get things changed. Michael Riskin, he's a doctor. His knowledge is, he works for the University of Michigan. He's.
Michigan State.
I'm not a speaker either, okay? I hate public speaking. As it should. Nobody should. It's, again, I'm paying attention, but in my own mind, it goes over here when it should be going this way. The knowledge that he has. Again, a local person that's come through the system, that has students, children in the system, that he's probably used something I think about it. He has kids in the program. Schimmel, an older gentleman that I loved his answer on, I think the first one you had asked Bob, but he didn't have the answer on the academics type thing, because that is what he does. He trusts other people. He doesn't ask the questions of these other people to do this. And as board members, that's kind of what we do. We're 7 people that have different strengths and weaknesses. Our job is, the staff brings us, we're gonna be going this direction, this is why. We can say, no, we don't like that, go a different direction. But we have professionals that are bringing it to us, to say, this is what we should be doing, this is how we should be doing it. I'm not coming up with the questions, I'm not coming up with the answers. They're coming to us, and I can have an opinion, but it's the 7 of us that guide them. Well, we're going in a different direction, we're gonna be doing this. But our staff doesn't say, hey, we're gonna change math tomorrow because we just don't like the way we're doing it. It's driven by the data that they have. They have the data, they do this all day long. This is their jobs. We're the representing the public, the people that have voted on us because they didn't get an interview process like this and that, otherwise I wouldn't be here if I had to go through that. But they have the data, I don't. They know what they're doing, I don't. They bring it to us, I trust them to make the right decision. And that's what we go with. So I love Lou's answer on that. It's about the kids and protecting the teachers. The teachers are the ones that, are with the kids. That is our job. When we've been making cuts over the last 15 years, we've tried to keep it out of the classroom. We've done the best we can, but by doing that, no one has gotten raises. Everyone, has been stuck, and it's not fair and it's not right. Some candidates said, well, we need to get them, and they're absolutely right. No one on this board or the previous board over the last 15 years said, hey, let's take it out of someone else's pocket. They've been tough decisions, they've been hard to make, And this board has made it. We may not all get along, we may not all like each other, but again, in looking back when the people were speaking, like, you know, a decision that we've made, a tough thing, they were going back to closing schools 5 years ago. And those were big decisions that were very hard, but things that had to be done because that's what a school board does. We make the decision. We can't say, well, we'll just put it off till next year. We're not state legislative where we can just, well, we'll put off the decision for 6 years because we won't be running them. You just, you know, put it off until that's done. This is our community. I have to live with this. I have a son who teaches, and I'd love to see him teaching in Waterford someday. But not while I'm on the board. It'd be hard. And again, I like Lou Schimmel for that, and it's hard to pick out of not only these candidates, but the candidates that have come before us. And I'm very grateful that I'm not running against any of them in an interview process. But again, our job is to make decisions similar to this. I'm not picking a friend, I'm not picking an enemy. I want people to question. That's our job. But when we get an answer, we accept it, unless we know a different answer. And I like Lou Schimmel's, you know, his answer on this. He doesn't plan on running. When we've appointed other people in the past, that was always a prerequisite of ours. So we aren't giving someone a heads up type thing in a race and getting voted on. Like, this is the incumbent. We want that seat to be open. The treasurer position is open right now on our board. What better person to fill it than the guy that is giving us how many thousands of dollars of free tax, whatever it is that he does when he does the bond issues. It isn't like he's just, hey, I'm gonna help out because I was on the school board back in 1976 when I was in 9th grade. I believe he appointed Stan Kirk when he talks about he was on with Stan. I think he appointed Stan because Stan was kind of a pain in the butt and was raising a lot of questions. He put him on because Stan had some expertise in some fields. And Lou has nothing to gain, but he's been in our community. He's giving us free advice on our bond, doing these things because he cares. I'm looking for someone that can step in simply and fill out. And if something happens to me, I'd be happy to see any of these candidates. I'm very proud of this, but that's where I'm leaning for that reason. So, that's my 2 cents.
Anybody else? Well, I too just want to, and I think I said it, I'll just say it again. The candidates, and I spoke when I walked out, there were 3 of them out there, and all 3 interviewed very well, and I know all 3. And jokingly said, I said, too bad it couldn't be an 11-person board. We could just take all 5 and put on. But we can't do that. As Ms. Patricia said, and Ms. Sutherland, we had even people beyond this, people in the list of 15 very good candidates. It was tough to come up with these 5 names to get to this point tonight. And so to now try to get to 1 out of 15 is really difficult. And you wish you had 2 weeks to kind of go over everything and really talk to them. It's tough to really gauge, on a piece of paper in a 15-minute interview. But I think we know the people. We know what we're faced with. The person needs to also work with this board. We've got to get together. As Rob said, we don't have to like each other, but we have to respect each other, and we have to move forward. We've got to try to put the past behind. We have a new superintendent here that we unanimously all selected. I know there was a lot of people who questioned, would this board be able to do that? And I think we shocked a lot of people, including ourselves, that not only did we unanimously choose who to bring in for interviews, we unanimously chose who to bring back for 2nd round interviews, and ultimately Scott. So we were able to do that. Looking at the people, I think all 5 interviewed very well. Margaret Bryce is somebody that I am very supportive of. I like her knowledge. I like her 30 years of knowledge of being in a public school district, and sometimes she can help educate me and tell me why things are, going. We can phone call or talk to her. Kristen Wagner, I thought Kristen interviewed outstanding tonight. She said a lot of great things. You can tell she's a very passionate parent in the district. Eric Witenmyer, I've known Eric for 3 years. He's always been positive through all the friction that this board has had over the last year or two. I've never heard him say a negative thing about any person, the board. It's always kind of been about, these guys have to get together and do what's in the best interest of kids. Mike Ristich, I've known Mike for about 9 years when we ran together in 2010. Extremely smart man. 2 young kids in the district, wife is a teacher. Mike is just a great guy, and again, his answers were fantastic. He's a tough one to not want on this board as well. And then Lou Schimmel, with his resume, and I did, there were some parts that I wondered, but I did, like Rob, I liked his first answer. When he said, he was very honest. He didn't try to pull it over. He said, that's not my strength. My strength is this, and this is what, I can bring to this board and rely on the people the experts in that field and let them do it. So, this is a really tough decision. I think it's a lot more difficult than what it was, and for me at least, in hiring a superintendent. We know these people, and we have to do what's in the best interest of this district. That ultimately is what we have to look at. There's 5 names here, and I have to look at who do I feel can be the best person to come on this board and serve this community and help align this board and move forward, as Scott says, as a team of 8. It's difficult, and I wish we had more time. We don't. We have until Saturday at midnight, where other people from outside of Waterford will choose this person. So I am struggling right now to think of someone. Again, there's all 5 here right now. I'm leaning toward Margaret Bryce, just because of the experience and the knowledge she brings. She did run in the last election, and that's right now where I'm leaning.
I was just going back, I had printed off Michigan Association of School Boards documentation relative to filling a board vacancy by appointment. It's called Simple Guide to the Fundamentals of Board Vacancies. In that is a section, and if anybody has it in front of them, it's on page 7, but it's something that I think perhaps might be helpful to this board in making this decision. It says, essentially, step 5, because that's kind of where we're at here. Following discussion, each board member lists a first choice and a second choice for appointment. The president tallies the results, giving 2 points for each first choice and 1 point for each second choice. The choices for each board member must be publicly announced and recorded in the minutes of the meeting. And then the board president, step 6, recommends for appointment the candidate with the most points. The candidate is asked to attend the public meeting at which the recommendation will be made and the vote taken. All other candidates receive a letter. So I don't know if that's something that we want to embrace, but I just wanted to share that. It feels like we might be a little stuck in how to take these amazing candidates and make a decision. Mr. President?
I'm looking for,
If we can just continue on, I don't think we've all had an opportunity to discuss. I'll go through my list briefly.
Sure.
What my thoughts were on each one of the candidates. Margaret Bryce, 30+ years of experience, extremely knowledgeable about teaching, being an employee here in the district, a teacher, a counselor, has since retired but is still involved in education, counseling at the community college level at Oakland Community College. Somebody's been very involved in the community, has lived in the district for so many years. So I think she was extremely impressive. And I think when I look at who would fit onto this board, I think about what the ideal candidate would be. I want somebody who has got some background in education or been involved in the educational sphere. They could understand what the teachers are going through and could understand what the district employees are going through. So I think that would be, I really like Margaret on that. Kristen Wagner, she's been an advocate in the community, having children at every different level of the school district. I've worked with her on the advocacy committee, passionate, obviously, about the school district and what she believes in the direction of the school district. Eric Witenmyer, a lot of experience with contract negotiations, with organized labor, with union, representing the American Federation of Teachers for numerous years. He's run for school board, and I'll say that about Margaret as well, has run for school board, so they put themselves out there, they campaigned, and knowing both of them and their campaigns, they both worked very hard. They didn't just put their name on the ballot, they really got out there and put all the oomph into it. Eric has been very positive figure, I think, in the community, having two sons who've gone through the school district. He's been very positive about this board. And he's been stuck in some difficult situations when he was representing the American Federation of Teachers, which lived here within Waterford. And a resident of the community. I look at Mike Ristich, and very intellectual, a professor at Michigan State University. I had an opportunity to meet him back in 2010 when he ran.
Thank you for getting the right school.
Don't want to make a mistake here. But a vast amount of experience, knowledge, and understanding of higher education. I had an opportunity to meet him when he ran for school board in 2010, he was very passionate. He ran in 2008, 2010, and he put a lot of work into both his campaigns when he ran. So again, somebody who's really put himself out there, has two kids coming in through the district, and I think about the level of depth that he was answering these questions, and the intellect of it was very intriguing to me. Mr. Schimmel, at the MAC Center he's talking about, and privatization, city manager. But when I look at it and I take away the politics of it, I think about that administrative background, that administrative mind, and that's where my school thought is where I come from on the administrative end. And the guy has been through the ringer, and he actually said that, right? He's faced difficult situations. So we had a huge pool of candidates that were extremely qualified. And even getting out to the larger pool, the ones that didn't make it to the final five, they were all very impressive. And you could read in their resumes and in their letters that they took the time to actually think this through before they applied, and showed how much they value the Waterford School District.
I'm not gonna repeat everything that everybody said, because everybody was qualified and they would all do great jobs. But for me, personally, it's who is the most well-rounded of all these candidates. Who is going to put who's gonna be a cheerleader for this district? Who is kind of gonna be no nonsense? Who is, we talk a lot about, well, for one thing, so Eric did a great job, no problem there, but we're not involved in negotiations. That's not our job to negotiate. And so while that experience is great, it's not my job to go into negotiations with staff. So for me personally, that's not necessarily a priority. We have people that do that. And that's their job, and they know how to do their job. If you want to base it based on elections, well, technically Margaret didn't win the last election, okay? So, for example, Lou Schimmel has won 2 elections, and he served. And if you really want to narrow it down, John Hillsbaugh was only 25 votes away, and he has 26 years of experience. So for me, that isn't a criteria. What is a criteria is who is the most well-rounded out of these 2 people, and I'm not gonna go through every single person, because I thought, they all did a great job, and they all bring strengths to the table, but somebody's gonna have to say it. And we're gonna have to narrow it down. So for me, I'm very happy with, my choices would be either Schimmel or Kristen Wagner, because I think they would both represent this district. Positively, they have the experience, they have the involvement, not only from a school level, but from a community level. They are well respected, they are well known, and they are proven leaders. And for me, those are my two, I would be happy with either of them.
I left that out, it was the last thing I was gonna say, it was my two choices, because I think that was asked. And I think having two choices is a good thing to narrow it down for each person. My two choices are Margaret, Bryce, and Wagner. For the reasons that I stated.
So,
I'm happy to go next.
sure, John.
And I apologize, certainly didn't mean to jump the gun. I agree with what's been stated. Each candidate, if we went through, I agree with everything that's been said. Each person brings something to the table, but ultimately we have to make a hard decision here. And I'm really hopeful that we find a common thread. I personally felt Kristen Wagner was a phenomenal representation of a current parent with kids in 3 different buildings. She has been exceptionally involved to this point. So her presence here or in this process was, I think, just a natural next step for her, given how much she has done for this district and how much she advocates in a very positive, powerful, meaningful way. And she always tries to do it professionally and with the best interests of our kids, our Waterford School District, and our community as her guiding light. I was really impressed with her interview and with her passion for Waterford. I guess if I was going to sum it up, and I love that. The other person I was exceptionally impressed with, actually it's really hard to narrow it here at this point because I have 2, but I thought Schimmel, who I've never had a conversation with. I know of him, but I don't know him. And I know that he is a no-nonsense kind of guy. I kind of feel like for this board, that might be a really good fit. It might be just, we've got hard decisions to make here. We've got, some bridges that we want to build. We want to move forward with neutrality, and so he would be my other selection. I loved his first answer as well, and I'm glad that he made that answer because I imagine people in the public like, oh, he doesn't know anything about curriculum. That is not a board member's job. We have extraordinary teachers and administrators and principals that know how to make those 4 walls in that classroom the very best it can be for our students. That is not a board member's job. A board member's job is not to run the district on a day-to-day basis. It's for governance and oversight. So the fact that he, spoke out and said, I will trust the people who know, is a powerful board member position. And I was really grateful for that response, as well as his financial background when he said, I'm going to wring every penny out of that budget so we can get it to the teachers, protect our first line. They're our first line of defense. That's something that I feel really strongly about as well. So for those reasons, those are the 2 candidates that I would, if I had to pick only 2, fully support.
You've been quiet.
Sometimes I should just be quiet. Not gonna argue. I mean, there's a couple people on here that shocked me. They did really well. I look forward to seeing them run in 2020. I'm kind of confused about some things. We want somebody to wring every penny out of our budget, but then again, we don't want them to peer in and look at curriculum, so I don't understand that. I made no qualms about it.
Everybody assumes that I'm friends with Margaret Bryce, like I was friends with Mary Bargon, just because Mary tagged me in the parking lot and said, hey, I do photography, can I take your picture? And I said, okay, and then my name was Mud. So Margaret Bryce I met while running for the school board. I like her, I trust her, she's honest, she's a graduate of the district. And when people on this board have said, we are representing the community, we are voting for the community, we are voting for what the community wants, she was third in line. She was 147 behind you, 152, I think, behind me. So the community voted on that, we represent the community, and that's where I stand on that one. If I had another one, I liked Eric, because I liked his story. I liked his story about compromise and his kids in the district, so.
We are certainly at a point where, again, it's right now and it's early on in our discussions. I'm not sure, I've said, I know we don't want to be here, but I think we all want to, at some point, get out of here. I'm willing to stay as long as it takes to figure this out. Like I said, it is difficult because this is an important decision, and it is tough to base it on a piece of paper with a resume and 15 minutes of a conversation. This person needs to be able to gel with all of this. Like Heather had said, she doesn't so much look at the past election as a kind of a reason. It's something probably different. I do look at it as kind of a reason, if that person is qualified. Now, if some non-qualified person would have ran, if there was one seat available and two people ran, one person very qualified and one extremely not qualified, of course not. I wouldn't take that next person and put them in if they weren't qualified. In this case, I kind of look at, and I think everybody had an opportunity to run 8 months ago, 7 months ago, to be a part of this board. And there were two people that were on the list of 15 applicants that did. It was Margaret and John Himmelsbach. My personal opinion is that should have some merit if they are qualified. If they are qualified. In my opinion, Margaret Bryce is highly qualified. She was endorsed by the MEA. She was endorsed by the teachers, their union group. I think that's important. Margaret Bryce would, as of right now, be my first choice. I would love to vote and do this tonight and move forward. I think I met Margaret a year ago, and like I said, she's never, ever, ever been a negative person about this board or any person on this board. To me, or I've never heard anything negative from her. As a matter of fact, I can guarantee you she has disagreed with times with John Paul. She has disagreed with me. She has disagreed with people on this board, but she doesn't do it in a negative or a disrespectful way. Her and I have a difference of opinion on school of choice. But we can be respectful about it. So I would love to see Margaret be a part of this board. I think she would come right in, and I think she would be a huge asset to this board, to this district, and to this community. She would be, my first choice. My second choice right now would be Mike Ristich. Again, I know him. He has 2 kids. I would like to talk to Mike more, though. I haven't talked to him really in 9 years. And again, we have to get, in my opinion, we need to get this decision right. We need to hit a home run. We have to hit a home run, or else we can't let ourselves fall back into what's been going on the last year or two. Although that being said, I do want to throw this out there. I thought about this. There's a guy at my work who watches our meetings all the time. And he's really kind of where he gets into it and he'll write notes and, I mean, good for him. But just not that long ago, he came in and he said, you know, you guys aren't as bad as what you think you are. He said, I went and I took all the times you voted since the beginning of this year, since Julie got on the board. And he said, 96% of the votes, you guys were 7-0. 96% of the votes. Is it true, not true? I don't know. That's coming from him. So I know we've had issues, but at the same time, I just want to also say that we do get along. And when I went to a workshop in Detroit a few months ago, and I've said this before, there were districts that have to have police coverage at their board tables because they literally get in fistfights. And I'm going off on a tangent, and I apologize. I'll bring that back, but I just want to say that. So right now, those would be my two. I would have a hard time voting right tonight for somebody other than Margaret, because I know, I wish we had more time. I know I've talked to at least Joan about her schedule, and it's not good to move forward. I know we want to get this done tonight. I know you want us to get it done tonight. I know the candidates want us to get it done tonight. I know Scott wants us to get it done tonight.
What more information do you need?
You know,
We've got interviews, we've got resumes, we've got cover letters. What are you gonna learn in the next?
I don't know what I would. I might not learn anything. But I think it's such an important position and a decision that just a 15-minute interview, I mean, there's 5 or 6 questions I'd love to ask. So that's my opinion.
Rob, did you have a second at all, a second choice?
Not really. Because again, I got a couple of them that are so close, that you know, one way or the other. Again, it just, because it is so close, that's why I'm leaning, because of the neutralness of where I feel he's at. Again, what Bob's talking about is, you know, person, we do vote together. We just don't get along. And again, it looks bad if that image, the perception, that I think Lou was talking about a little bit. Again, we get the job done, but it's the rough road that we're taking to do that. We're making a big deal over picking a board member. We don't get to do that during elections. When I was elected 20 years ago, I beat an incumbent. They probably weren't real happy then. Julie comes, she beat an incumbent. You know, some people may not have been real happy then. We don't have the choice of picking who we're working with. What we have to do is work together. And again, I'm looking at Lou as someone that I think would be a very neutral person. It isn't someone that I graduated high school with. It isn't someone that is, I feel, very, very optimistic about our community. It isn't someone that has more education than most of the people in our district, that are all great choices. We're making a big deal over, we're elected officials. Anybody can come, anybody can go. We don't have a whole lot of control over that. By picking someone that's fairly neutral, that's what I'm looking for, is that simple, easy, I can live with this, I can live with that. That's all I'm looking for. We're making a big deal over, we aren't picking the superintendent, the person that is going to be the head of the district, that comes up with the ideas and brings them to us with the staff for us to make decisions on. This is just someone else that's gonna go along with the decisions that are brought to us. We say yay, nay, or let's tweak this. Again, Lou Schimmel isn't going to be in the finance department other than the treasurer's spot is open. I would love to see him fill that, because that is what he does and what he's done over the years for my community. And he has no interest in running. He wants to come in and just fill a position. We're all going to get along because we all do the job. We vote together. We care about them, but the image that we have isn't. And that's where, I don't want to say a grandfatherly person will come in and fix that, but we had a board member once, Jim Lark, and he was a feisty kind of guy. He was a coach, but he gave you that confidence. When he was board president one year, had someone, come up to the podium when they weren't supposed to, and he's banging on the hammer, telling the guy to turn around. Dave Smith was going to get up and go, get that guy before Jim Lark went down there and, smacked him or something. He had that confidence. And Lou gives me something. That's what I'm feeling in that candidate. It isn't because I like or something, I don't care if people talk good about me or bad about me. I'm looking at his vision for the district is protect the teachers. They have the front lines. them are the ones that make so much of a difference. He isn't the expert in anything, well, he is an expert in finance. And again, I don't see him in the finance department per se, but because he's already there basically, when he works with Bill on bond issues. That just, it's a neutral thing, that's why I'm looking, that's why I'm not having, my second candidate is, you know, everybody.
So when I tally this up, it's to Luce, Schimmel, when I tally up, everybody made two choices, probably one. But we have 3 for Margaret Bryce and 3 for Luce Schimmel, 2 for Eric Witenmyer, 2 for Kristen Wagner, 1 for Mark Kristich. So I think we have it down to 2 as we talk this through. Now, like Bob, I am, and I did mention it to Joan as well, I would love another just 10 minutes with each one of them to be able to ask some more questions. There are, one question that was asked, and I think, you know, we learned this in Board 101, but obviously we all do see this world differently, it's subject to interpretation. What is your role as a board member? There are other questions on here, but these are some of the things that that I would like to, you know, have. We had 10 minutes and asked them 2 questions to get a little bit more in depth about their philosophy on things, or learn a little bit more about them. It is a very important decision, and I know we want to, you know, we want to come to some agreement tonight, and we definitely have to by Saturday. But I look at, we have it down to 2, and having the opportunity to spend 10 more minutes, that's 20 minutes. Now the problem that we do have is I believe they both have left. So, but we do have a board meeting on Thursday.
What about just asking the question yourself personally?
Right, I think that's a really good.
That's legal, just so everybody knows. If
Call, have a
Yeah,
conversation.
If you have questions.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm open, I'd like it to be transparent, because this is open, but we can speakerphone it. I mean,
it's not fair to them though to catch them off guard that all of a sudden they're, I mean, me personally, I don't.
And again, no.
I didn't mean tonight, I meant.
Oh, gotcha.
It's just, I do think that we should be making a decision, and we should commit to making a decision tonight. I think we have all the facts. I don't know that a further conversation is gonna change anybody's mind. So if we have to, you know, if we have to stay here, then we stay here. But I just don't know how having further conversations is going to change anybody's mind.
So I have a question, Jim Paul. I don't mean to put you on the spot, so go ahead. But, when did we meet last?
Thursday.
Was it
Last Thursday.
Thursday? So last Thursday, you were comfortable enough to include Lou. So is there a specific thing that changed for you, or it's just you had to narrow it down to?
yeah, I think there's some things with a little bit of his reputation, with what he's done with privatization. I would like to pick a little bit more at that. He kind of came up here with, you know, nonchalant, he's been through the ringer. And just get a little bit more of his philosophy on privatization and what he sees, compare and contrast that with the benefit of a school district, you know. And one of the things, it's no secret to me that there's no secret to anybody that I have been against privatization. I don't think it's right for our schools. You know, I think quality education is important. When we looked at the busing, the janitorial, I did not support it. So there's that information. And when he was bringing him on board, he was one of 5. It wasn't, this is my choice. You know, I had 5, there was 4 other people. I was looking at the top 5 people that we could have, you know, and, you know, bring in for an interview with more information.
Do you think you might consider him if you went and spoke with them?
I don't want to just go, I didn't feel comfortable reaching out to any of these candidates once they had put their name in the hat. And that's just me personally.
I agree, I don't think any of us did. It didn't feel, it wouldn't be right.
And so I don't think that that's right. I want it to be an open conversation
But I would think if you were down to two, if you had a private conversation with either one of them, if you were gonna sway you one way or the other. Because if we're down to two, I don't think us talking back and forth, one candidate or the other, we're not gonna fix it. We can stay here a couple more hours, but I think we pretty much made up our mind. If you have other questions, I would hope that you would ask them to the individuals, and we could revisit it on Thursday, say, hey, did you talk to the candidate? I have no more questions of the candidates. I've heard, I've seen, I like a lot of things. I don't have anything that I'm questioning on, or one way that I can be swayed one way or the other per se. And I don't think us talking here tonight are going to be able to do that either. So sticking around for a long time is a waste of everyone's time. If you have questions, if you feel comfortable, I don't see where there would be any issues, or with any other candidate, to talk with them individually to go one way or the other to sway it. If not, open schools, that's their job. They've done it in the past.
I would go open schools.
And I don't want someone else picking my candidate
There's
either.
no reason we need to go
but
open schools.
I just,
With 15 candidates,
Right.
if they're down to two, there's no viable reason why this needs to go to open schools. None whatsoever.
And I agree with Rob. I don't think, I appreciate you, and as Joan said, none of us had conversations or anything with them after that, or before tonight, but I don't think it's a bad thing. Again, I was hoping we could make this happen tonight. Right now, just looking at the names, it seems like we're here and we're here. I certainly would have no problem with anybody at this point calling out and speaking to somebody and having a conversation, asking them some questions. I don't think anybody would have a problem with that. If that might give you more, be more comfortable in making a decision, or, supporting one person or another. We certainly could wait, and I personally didn't want to, but I agree with Mr. Petrucci. I don't know even if we sit here till 4 a.m., if we're gonna, or till 9 p.m. It might be 9 p.m. Right, I don't know if it's going to change anything at this point. Maybe if we do have someone we want to ask some questions to, I think we have contact information for all of the candidates. You have 48 hours. Reach out to them, call them, see if you can meet them for coffee, talk to them on the phone, and or him or her, and see if that would sway or change your opinion. Of course, that's putting it off tonight, but
I would encourage us, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that, I have a number one and a number two, right now. And, I don't want it just to be on me. If people want to vote tonight, we can certainly take a vote tonight. It was just my preference, is to have more information, but I do have number one and number two.
Right, but I think given what you documented, and I think what we all heard, is that we are divided 3-3 on candidates. And so if we are seeking to find middle ground, what we have to do is figure out where is there room for compromise. Is there a candidate that we could get 4 votes on, that someone is willing to consider that might not be their first or second choice? Do we look at first, second, and third choices? Do we need to figure this out? And I think one thing that's been missing, and that I guess I would encourage us, is to talk to one another. Talk to one another about where we've been and what we know and what we've heard, and talk to candidates if we have questions. Unless, and I can't answer this, unless this board feels like I have already been clear, these are the 2 people I will consider, or the 1 person I will consider. If people feel strongly right now and that isn't gonna change, then let's not waste everybody's time.
I just want to say, and I know your hand's up, but right now, we're not taking audience comments or questions. After we adjourn, we certainly can. So is there kind of a consensus right now then to go, adjourn this
Well, I think
meeting?
we should have a process in place before we adjourn. We're not gonna make a decision tonight. So
I
that we
think
know what to expect.
the process would be everybody would have
clear on.
the right to go if you want to reach out to a candidate and ask more. As president, legally, I can soft poll and see if, you know, there could be a consensus Thursday. And, you know, I don't know if we're there tonight and nothing's gonna change. Do we wanna, on Thursday, sit there and have another 2-hour conversation? Perhaps we can, one-on-one, which legally we are allowed to do, like I think Joan said, pick up the phone, talk amongst ourselves. We can't do it as a group, we can't do it as 4, you know, that would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act, but we can speak one-on-one to each other, and maybe at that point, we can find some common ground and do it.
I don't think anybody's first and second choices are gonna change. They're not in alignment for a majority. So I think what Joan said is critical. Is there a third candidate that we can get behind? Because our choices have not changed since we met last time. And, we all agree they were capable, qualified. Is there somebody that we can get behind?
If we were to do the 3 stickers with 5, would we be comfortable with, I don't know. And the way this is written is.
Okay. I don't think that's going to,
Well,
so.
well, what this is saying is that first choice gets 2 points, second choice gets 1 point, and that might change things, but it sounds like everybody's first choice is everybody's first choice, and so you got
Yeah, I
6.
didn't have the second choice because I feel strong about 2 other candidates, but I feel so much stronger about Lou.
Right,
Because
understood.
of the neutralness. So, you know,
Kind of
I'm
how I
not playing
felt.
fair here
Nope, I
with
understand.
everybody else, but I had 2 other candidates that
I
I'd have to
do.
flip a coin 3 times to take 2 or 3.
Agreed, I understand.
So that's, you know, I just don't see it happening again. And I respect everything. And I have no problem with that. You're backing a very valid, good candidate. I just like that. You know, that's, and there's, I'm not apologizing for it.
He's trying so hard to say something.
You know,
I'll leave the meeting. I'll leave the meeting for disrupting, but I think Joan has a good idea. Let's, each board member pick their top 3 candidates. They don't have to be in order. 1, 2, you just pick 3 candidates, write it on a slip of paper.
Yeah, I
And
can't have you speak right now, it's not fair.
Okay.
So, guys, as a group, we want to adjourn at this point, and
Can, before we adjourn, can we make a commitment to one another and to this community that we will talk to one another and try to address concerns, or to the candidates if we have questions that you feel like are unanswered? I just want to do due diligence, because nothing has changed since our meeting on Thursday from where we sit now, except I think there's maybe not as much support for Lou as there was on Thursday. But if there's something that we need to move the dial, and we're not gonna move the dial by doing nothing between now and Thursday. So,
Okay.
And we still, and so I'm clear, all 5 candidates are still.
I would say so. I mean, I don't think if there's a 3rd candidate, if there's a 4th here that we can get behind, I'm all for it, you know? So I would say take all 5 into consideration still as we move forward. Maybe if you have a conversation with Joan or with me or something, we might find that a 3rd candidate we all could support. I think that's the key. I believe that's kind of what we all want to happen, is for us to decide on the person and not 7 people, you know, outside of one. All right, is there anything else done?
so we're going to readdress this on Thursday as a.
It's currently on the agenda right now, correct, Megan? It's on the agenda right now, and we can readdress it then. I mean, it's there. I mean, we still have up until Saturday at midnight. You know, I know none of us want to meet on Friday or Saturday. But time is coming quick, but we still have time. And so, like you said, I think if we all make that commitment to reach out to one another, if you have questions for some of the candidates, call them up, talk to them. And, over the phone, meet them in person, whatever it takes.
I'm gonna, put something out there that is exceptionally negative. And I want clarification from this board that it is not true. Because I have heard multiple rumors to the effect that some members of this board would love nothing more than for this to go back to Oakland schools so that Margaret can be appointed by default. And I would hope that, I'm not accusing anybody, I'm just telling you what I've heard. And I would hope that our ethics and our morals would prevent us from hatching a plan quite so mischievous as to stall this long enough that we're just not gonna vote.
Well,
And I really hope that what I'm hearing is not true, because if it is, then that's unacceptable. So if you can clarify for me that that is indeed not true, I would love to know that.
Well, I can tell you for me, I had a conversation with you and Joan the other night, and you guys asked me that question. And I told you exactly my answer. I don't want it to go to Oakland schools. I don't want somebody else deciding on our board member. I don't know who they'll pick. I don't know anybody at Oakland schools. I don't know the superintendent. I heard today that it might be the superintendent who picks that person. So, as far as me, I don't want to take that chance. What I said all along from day one is if we got into a circus show and we started arguing, we were yelling at each other, screaming, I didn't want that to happen. And I would just as soon, if that's the way it was going to go, let it go to Oakland schools, which is exactly what I told you the other day on the phone. And I still hold true to that, and I'd say that to anybody. I think we've done had a professional conversation both last week and this week, so I'm not in favor of that.
Okay, I'm putting it out there because I've heard it. Sure.
Yeah, Heather, I think we're all committed, I think we all committed tonight that we want to make the decision collectively as a board. I can tell you this, because I'm a policy wonk, that if it goes to Oakland schools, they don't want it. They will send it back to us. I have been involved with the Oakland School Board Association.
They don't have a choice.
They do have many choices. They have
Superintendent
many
makes a
options.
choice.
Nope, they have many options. They dealt with it in Farmington recently. I believe there was another school district down in Wayne County no, not Wayne County, but Oakland County. There's been at least 2 districts in the last year where this has happened. And Oakland schools did everything within their power. They have a lot of options they can choose. And their very absolute last option is to make the decision for the school board.
Okay.
They give timelines, they give other alternatives and choices from what I have found, and knowing people on different school boards before we even got into this, knowing people on Farmington School Board, from MASB and Oakland County School Board Association. This is the situation that Farmington was in, I believe, over there, and Oakland schools does not want to change. They want local school boards to make the decision.
I appreciate that because indeed that was true, then there is absolutely no hope of moving forward if that was indeed something that was going to come to fruition. And I just, in all spirit of honesty and transparency, I'm putting it out there that that's what I'd heard. And I appreciate that clarification because that was probably going to be one of the most disappointing things I'd heard if that indeed was the case. So I will trust the process then.
All right, is there any other comments?
So we're clear, we're gonna make an effort to communicate amongst each other, move forward with any questions that we have. Candidates, qualified candidates are still there, because there could be that of the other 3 that were not the top 2, one of those candidates could be the compromise candidate.
Keeping in mind that there cannot be 4 people in any discussion is to violate the Open Meetings Act. Whether it be by phone, text, email, anything. Thursday, it's on the agenda. Megan had it on the agenda last week as a if needed. Obviously, it's needed, so she had it on there in case we would need it at this point, and right now it looks like we'll need it at this point. All right. Okay.
I'm wondering, would it be appropriate to say, I see a lot of people talking and whispering to each other out in the audience, and I'm sure there's a lot of people, would it be appropriate for us to stay after and have conversations with the community? So that we can hear what they're having to say? I don't want anyone in the process to be uncomfortable with that, so I'm asking it publicly.
Absolutely. I think every meeting, it's right on our thing, will be stay after, and.
So there, well, we
Sure.
will be here.
Keep in mind, though, it can't be in with 4 of us or something.
Right.
Agreed,
You know.
agreed.
Yeah.
I would ask too that when the meeting adjourns, that Mr. Hearn turn off his camera so that those conversations are not recorded.
Sure. Okay. You're set. Meeting adjourned.